Hey guys, welcome to Sunrise Extra on a Friday. Thanks for tuning in as we get all logged in here so we can see your comments. So, just this past week alone, we've had, I think, 4 stories maybe about different neighborhoods in and around Portland kind of trying their own thing, getting together, having letter writing campaign nights to city officials in Portland, having now regular meetings and certain tactics to kind of help each other watch out for crime, trash, illegal camping, all that kind of stuff that we're all seeing across the region.
For them. City,
yeah. So Catherine Cook talked with a group of business owners over in Northeast, kind of near Airport Way, which is a very big hotspot for illegal camping. There's been, assaults on the street against, employees of different businesses.
Should we run that story?
Yes, we're going to show you that story, and then we'll
context.
kind of talk about what you're seeing afterwards.
I never imagined that we would be in this position still after this long.
We first met Chris Delano 4 years ago. He runs IPD Volvo off Airport Way. In 2017, he walked us through the problem they'd already been dealing with for a year: illegal camping, trash, and crime.
Cars being broken into, glass being shattered, gas being siphoned out of gas tanks. And that's not just my business.
Delano had hoped for better days ahead.
But it's growing, and now it's affecting business more in a time where we're struggling to survive already.
You can't make them go there.
This week, business leaders from around Airport Way and Park Rose got together.
Just trying to get information out, let people know what's going on.
They shared ideas, frustrations, and horror stories, like what's been happening at this Best Western Plus.
We've comped rooms, we've had to help fix car windows, Cadillac converters stolen off.
Manager Ambrosia Peterson says most recently they had to deal with this man, seen here driving over hotel landscaping. She says for weeks he harassed customers and employees. Security cameras even captured him assaulting this female shuttle driver who was just trying to keep him outside.
And he just decided to go ahead and punch me.
Jenna Castro didn't want to go on camera, but says this is just one example of a massive problem.
I want people that need help to get help. I want people to stay at a hotel and not have to worry about, somebody standing by the front door or lurking about, or whether their windshield might get smashed.
The Park Rose Business Association tells us in just the last year, owners have spent at least $300,000 dealing with this problem, whether it's on security updates, paying customers for damages, or just general cleanup. They want to see the city spending money on long-term solutions, or frankly, anything that will help them see results.
It doesn't seem like we're getting anything for the taxes that we're paying, and it doesn't feel like they're listening to anyone other than one type of individual, which are the protesters, the rioters, and feeling compassionate for the homeless. Where's the compassion for the owners of the businesses and the neighbors? There is none.
Business owners tell us they've all but given up on law enforcement.
When we call police, the response is that their hands are tied and that they really can't do anything to help the situation. So it's a bigger picture. It's got to come from the top down.
Everyone here recognizes that theirs are not the only neighborhoods dealing with this. And that, they say, is their biggest point.
Essentially, we're not addressing any of the behavior. We're just asking people just to move around, and none of it is humane.
In Northeast Portland, Catherine Cook, KGW News.
Okay, so what have you guys seen? Quality of life in your neck of the woods. I know a lot of our viewers here on Sunrise Extra, at least the ones watching us live right now, live outside of the city. Right. So we want to know, tell us what's going on in your neck of the woods, as Al Roker says.
I love Portland. I loved it more before, in years past. We wanted urban living. At some point in 2014, we moved downtown. I had an apartment. It was and I saw between 2014 and 2016, while I was down here, the situation deteriorate just exponentially. In just 2 years, it really took a dive. And, I've told this story before, so forgive me, but that's what I was thinking at the time. I'm like, I have an 18-year-old. I don't want her walking around here. She's a St. Mary's grad, so she loved being close to school. Yeah. But it was just hair-raising, some of the things that I saw and I heard.
You didn't want you walking there either, I'm assuming.
No, I didn't, but I certainly didn't want my daughter out there. I joke that I'm, let's see, what is it, that I'm not easily disturbed. I'm easily annoyed, but not easily disturbed. And some of the stuff that I heard, like out my window, we were on the top floor of a building and it was 5 floors down, and we'd have the windows open, and I thought, I hope that these people aren't really talking about things that happened, because they were like it was a fantasy or something, because they were talking about rape and murder and like just out of their minds kind of thing. And there was a group of men, it was right by PSU, and they were camped out there, and I thought, I can't. We were constantly calling the police, and at some point they were almost apologizing. The dispatchers were like, sorry.
But it's like that woman said that Catherine talked to, and we actually talked about this yesterday in our news meeting. You see these almost political ads now on TV for these private citizen groups that are taking donation money basically to kind of have an influence in city council now to get some action. And they did a survey of Portland residents and it found a majority of people who live here did not want the police defunded. They want more officers on the streets to help deter this kind of crime and trash and all of that stuff. And it's just interesting, and what she was saying in that soundbite is, our city leaders are more apt to act when the squeaky wheel or the loudest ones, protesters, rioters, influence them, or random people on Twitter. Like the optics of Portland as a progressive city is getting more results than the majority of citizens who do want some type of order for the businesses who are paying taxes. I mean, we have some of the highest income taxes in the country here. And she's like, what are we getting for this? Well,
I mean, if you're city leaders who are in government, city council, etc., if their number one job is not to use the tax revenue to give the people who live here a safe, somewhat clean place to live, then what is their job? Because if that's not their job, then I say, why do we even have them?
Well, we're going to have to start getting harsh, and it will piss half of the people off, like, we got to, like you were saying, so the city is making these 6 sanctioned homeless village camps. They announced 3 of the sites this week. One of them now off the table because it was literally underwater for wetlands that they didn't even check about. But each of these camps, it sounds like a great idea. They're going to have 60 these little pods, but the people that are going to live there are going to be hand chosen by nonprofits as folks that they have had contact with that they think would do well in a situation like this. But it's not like you were wondering, are they going to be driving around the city and be like, no, sorry, you can't camp here, you got to go to this
and we will shuttle
safe
you to
rest
that.
village.
That's not
going to be happening.
Yeah.
We have a really interesting article, and then I know, Brenda, you want to read some comments on our website right now. We put this together yesterday, and I think it really speaks to what is going on and why we are just hitting all these roadblocks. So the city of Portland, we have a mayor and we have 4 commissioners. They are elected citywide, not by specific districts to represent those districts. And it's called a weak mayor commission system. We are the biggest city to have this form of government, and it's completely ineffective for how many people we have in our city. And each commissioner runs a bureau. Dan Ryan has the housing bureau, Ted Wheeler, the mayor, is also the police commissioner. And a lot of people, there's a panel review that is regular. Every 10 years they do this, and they look at, hey, should we change this commission form of government? And it has to go to the voters. And every time voters have said no, and they think it's because we haven't really explained it well, like voters don't really understand. Oregon has this sense kind of with like pumping your own gas or a sales tax, that we want to be different. We don't want to like do other things that other cities do. So let's just keep this commission form of government. But it's stopping us from making hard decisions, and really for the mayor to have any sort of more pull than the others.
To me, that's the big thing, is the mayor. You mentioned police commissioner, Mr. Wheeler. But other than that, it's almost a figurehead position. He doesn't have the ability to grab the reins and let's do this.
And they say having one person head up an entire bureau is way too much work for one person. And then there's not the incentive to represent a section of town. And those people feel heard. Like you're just, the whole city is voting for 5 commissioners instead of like Far East County, you have a representation at the table, and West Side, Portland, West Hills has a representation at the table, which would make it more equal.
Right. Well, they need to get to explaining that if they think voters need
That's on our website right now. It's very interesting. But it's up for debate now, and we could change it.
Well, this is the time to change it if we're going to. Jennifer Taft is on our stream, and she's kind of weighing in on that same thing. And she says, I think the be-all, end-all is Wheeler and his failure to do his job, which we just explained why it's so difficult. Full stop. My cul-de-sac is okay because we're neighbors who help each other, but outside of my neighborhood, it's dystopian. My daughter is in the dorms at PSU. I worry more about other people's mental health or being shot. I love Portland, but ...
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
Valerie says Portland has changed so much, it's just not the same anymore. And Cindy Garza says, anybody have a better idea? Because I don't see anybody coming up with any ideas. Sheila Speck, also, we don't go to Portland anymore because of what's going on. Need more safety measures that will work.
Debbie Southworth, good morning, Debbie. I've never seen you on the stream, so thank you for weighing in. Here's an interesting perspective. She says, I live in Lentz, that's in southeast Portland, near kind of Foster. She says, my neighborhood was one of the first to experience the huge influx of homeless individuals. We did a lot of stories in Lentz. The increased crime, the garbage along what used to be clean streets has turned what used to be a nice middle-class neighborhood into an open garbage can. The folks need mental health care, they need basic services, and with rent prices going insane, it's not going to end anytime soon.
Yeah, rent is a huge thing in the Portland area. Just this week we were talking about a local real estate company, and they donated a plot of land right next to the Red House along North Mississippi to Self Enhancement Incorporated, which does fantastic work for underserved populations, and it's going to put some affordable housing on that lot, and it's also going to put services on site. So resources for the people who live there, and that's a start in the right direction. We need to see more affordable housing. We just do.
We do, but you know what? To me, at some point, you've got to say, we have to get control of our city for the people that live here and pay their taxes, their kids go to school, etc. And we have to do it now. And to me, they need to start looking. They need to start looking at drastic measures of, hey, I'm all for affordable housing and let's invest in properties. I'm all for that. But at some point, you've got to say, we've got to end what's going on now. And to me, one of the ways to do that would be, let's find some large pieces of land, and it doesn't have to be pretty and clean for starters, but let's just get a piece of land with some toilet facilities, have some food there, and let's start having shuttles that pick people up on the street and say, this ends today. You cannot camp in downtown Portland anymore. We're going to shuttle you to this location. Is that going to cost money? Yes, but guess what? What's one of our news stories today? Oh, let's put a nice big bike bridge. How much does that cost over I-84? I'm not against a bike bridge, but at some point, I don't want to hear our city leaders go, well, we don't have funds to do that. I'm like, well, you're spending money on that. This is a flippin' emergency. Everything else needs to stop. This needs to be solved.
Yeah, I totally agree. But here's the rub and why that's not happening.
Partly
is
of
the
what you
optics
said.
of it. Imagine, you have a van going around, you see a tent, you're like, oh, you got to go, and they don't want to. Then what? You're strong-arming someone to get in a van, then someone's got a video of that, it goes national, then...
At some point, no tolerance of certain things is the way to go.
Agree.
I have no tolerance about certain things of my daughter. I'm sure you people watching us have no tolerance policies in your own homes about certain types of things.
I do understand the spirit of what you're saying because, you feel like that. I feel like that. A lot of people feel like that. But it is never that simple, right? We can rant and rail and agree, but it's not that simple. There are so many things that have to happen, and people do. I agree.
I'm listening.
I'm just saying,
I'm listening.
You can't, it's not that easy. Is what I'm saying.
I didn't say it was easy.
Well,
but they have to do something. This business about, from my standpoint, in the 2, 3, 4, 5 years this has been going downhill, Nothing has happened. That's probably not fair. I don't even get the feeling that the city council people are even that invested in making something happen. And maybe that's not fair. But a lack of action when things are, the part of Catherine's story was, the one gentleman said, we were here 4 years ago. I can't believe it would go on this long. Well, not only has it gone on this long, it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. I mean, it's not an understatement to say we are losing our city. It's just not.
So Veronica says, Rod, good idea. Somebody else said, Monica says, so Rod, what's your solution? National Guard?
That's what I was saying.
How do you actually
strong-arming
everybody
people?
has rights. The people have a right to pay their taxes, to have their business sitting there without being their windows broken and their cars siphon gas and all those other things of the story.
Right.
I'm just saying I would like to see the people's rights who pay the taxes and work their butts off to be a little bit more respected. And that does not mean that I do not 1,000% say that we need to increase our ability to handle mental health and to have facilities. But I'm just saying, but something shouldn't be allowed. And whatever it costs to have places for people to go to be treated, to live there. It's not healthy for these people the way they're living on the streets either. That's a health crisis in itself. But whatever it costs and takes, we need to start doing it.
Well, that's also the problem is, you know, people will say and argue that we could build affordable housing way cheaper than we do when we get city government involved in it. Like the price just skyrockets. And as you said, it doesn't have to be fancy schmancy and LEED certified and et cetera, you know, leading the way. They need a roof over their head. And all the agencies that work with the houseless say the first thing we need to do to help them at all is get a roof over their head. And they're a very overall unsympathetic population. You know, we probably are evenly split or then some of people who are like, no, I don't want to, you know, just do, you know. So it's a hard thing to reach some kind of consensus about. Jennifer Taft again weighing in says Lloyd Center, convert it to houseless services and homeless housing.
Remember last week when, I think it was Catherine again, actually found that woman who was living in motel to motel, and she hauls around a giant harp, and she plays the harp on the sidewalk down at River Place Marina in Portland for tips and for money to pay for the motels. She's homeless. I thought, I mean, there was a point in there where she said she had lived in Vegas. And she got behind on her rent, her credit turned bad, her, you know, all kinds of things led to being homeless. But then she said she moved from Vegas to Portland because she heard we have better services.
We do.
But I think it is just I mean, to go around and ask a few people at some of these camps, like, you know, what led you here? What was you know, is it credit problems? Is it really like you were in an apartment last month or you were on someone's couch last month and now they've had enough of you and you're on the street? Or like you literally you ran out of money, you know, from this expensive city and now you're on the street. Like what happened that now we have just this explosion
no other
of people?
option.
Or are a lot of people coming here from other places?
I think they are, but I mean, especially now, the pandemic has exacerbated everything. It just put it on fast forward like no other thing could possibly. Willie Huey says, I travel all over the country, hard to find somewhere else in downtown. Hard to find somewhere else with a downtown slum problem. His words, like Portland. Homelessness, sure, but not in downtown or in residential areas.
Yeah, Michelle Osborne makes a comment about what I was talking about, and Michelle says, good morning, by the way. Wait a minute, so you want to shuttle these homeless people to a large chunk of land, which means you then bring the problem to a more rural area, and a lot of these people refuse to work, can work and won't. Let's address, and it's a mix of people, as we all know. Let's address these people with their hands out, saying, give me this, give me that, acting like entitled children. These are Michelle's words. Yes, the homeless problem needs to be addressed, but let's address all of the problems. And again, Michelle, I'm with you. Let's address all the problems. My main sentiment was at some point you have to say as a city government that pitching a tent on a sidewalk in downtown Portland is not acceptable. And now you have to have a solution before you can say that. But I just feel like we haven't even got the wheel going yet.
Yeah. Well, kudos to the businesses that, I mean, they're taking on some scary stuff. They're literally
They're trying to
confronting
survive.
it. I mean, in hand-to-hand combat situations, as you saw in some of those stories. But, you know, they're trying to go about it the right way of writing to city leaders and just installing more cameras and lighting in areas to at least try and deter, you know, and keep people safe in areas that they can. But, you know, our hearts go out to you. It is hard to be a business owner.
And they're not unsympathetic. They talk to us and say, we want people to get help.
Right. It's not humane to be living like that.
I just need to be able to do business as well.
So thank you guys for weighing in. Very thoughtful conversation. It continues. But enjoy your weekend. We will see you back here on Monday. Bye, guys.